Brian Kelly said something interesting here in Destin. He said SEC teams want to play Big Ten teams. His idea would be the SEC goes to a 9-game conference schedule, and then each SEC team also plays a Big Ten team, which I have put this out in columns before. One of the things I think the SEC is trying to push with this 9-conference game thing is it will help them get a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten for non-conference games, because I don't think the Big Ten teams want to do it if the SEC teams are only playing 8 conference games. Now, we've talked at length this week about the automatic bid situation is the only way the SEC is going to go to 9 conference games. So the CFP, which we just talked about how great Lane Kiffin's idea was, and I love Lane Kiffin's idea, and I wish it could just be 16 best, but there's a reason the commissioners aren't going for that, because they are just overcomplicating this. Part of the way they're overcomplicating it is they want these automatic bids. They want to know, it's sort of like just knowing what your budget is. Like, you're going to get this many teams in. But the SEC ADs have basically come around and said, even the guys who wanted a 9-game conference schedule before now said they'll only do a 9-game conference schedule if they get the automatic bid. So, but if they do, that would open up avenues probably for a Big Ten SEC scheduling alliance. Brian Kelly was talking about that. As he said, they want to play Big Ten teams. I would assume we want to see those games in the regular season, right?
I mean, I'm happy to hear this. This is so much better to hear than the other thing, which is we don't want to play anybody good. And like the thing too is the more non-conference game, and this is an argument that I haven't even made, and I should have been making for the past week about we don't want to play non-conference games against good teams, is if the conferences are going to be so big and you're not going to get a real round robin and you're going to have teams on the West Coast playing in East Coast conferences, and the spiel, it would be nice to get as much possible context as possible about which teams are good. And how do you get that context? By big time non-conference games? Because listen, wouldn't it have been awesome if Indiana played LSU last year? We would have had a lot of questions answered.
It would have helped a lot. Yes.
The hardest thing about college football, I think it's the beauty, but it's also difficult, is you are left playing hypothetical games often because of no choice. Like in the NFL, there's no hypotheticals. You just know who did what, and they play the games. And in college, it's like, well, if they played this, or what would the spread be? Or they didn't play anybody good and we played a harder schedule. If we played that schedule, we would have done better. Like all that crap that we're just constantly flinging at each other all the time would be easier to decipher and work through if there was a bigger sample size of big, good teams playing big, good teams. And the thing about it too is that I feel like there should be a rule where every team in a power conference has to play at least one power conference opponent in the non-conference, just to get more data.
They all made those rules during the 4-team era. They all had those rules. They're kind of unwritten now. And if you look, everybody basically does. I think Ole Miss isn't doing it this year because Wake Forest bought itself out of the return game. But most of these teams are. But
because Indiana
this
didn't,
is what's interesting.
Right? That was the problem. Did Indiana?
Right, they got out of the game with Louisville. They would have.
They had no power conference, non-conference games. If they would have played Louisville or Clemson or somebody, it doesn't. I'm not saying it has to be LSU versus USC or LSU versus Ohio State every year, but it would be cool to see Indiana, Auburn. I don't know. It doesn't have to be marquee.
Well, and that's the thing.
We Monday night games. Just context.
We've got some of these games coming up. We've got Texas and Ohio State this year. We've got Michigan and Oklahoma
Baylor
this year.
Auburn Baylor's perfect.
Yeah, Auburn Baylor is going to be great. Yeah, those are going to be great games. And so I do think an SEC Big Ten in particular, because you get a lot more comparison of those two conferences during the year, it'd be nice to see that. If they just went. Now, obviously, they're not equal membership, so you couldn't do all the SEC teams against all the Big Ten teams, but you could do 16 against 16 every year. And I would love it if they could match them up in a way where you say, okay, this half of the league is home games this year, this half of the league gets away games this year, and then we decide the previous January who matches up against who. So you would have the best matching up against the best, and then on down the line. So one, you get more competitive games probably doing it that way. But 2, you also maybe get a better comparison of conference strength relative to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. More.
Yeah.
I want to say,
but this is what the SEC and the Big Ten people are going to say, and it's going to drive the ACC school fans and the Big 12 school fans crazy. And I'm sorry, they're going to say, you got to give us the auto bids or we're never doing this. Because if you don't give us the auto bids, there's no incentive to schedule these games. We're just taking on more losses. And I understand what they're saying.
I don't.
But no, I do. It's their thing. That they have all the leverage here.
I feel like it's
made up. They've weaponized this.
Yeah.
It is made up, but here's the thing. They're dangling something shiny in front of you and saying, "Do you want this? Do you want this?" It's like when our kids were babies, you dangle your keys in front of them to get their attention. Like, you're dangling something shiny. Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Okay, you have to give me this. If you don't give me this, you don't get the shiny thing. And that's what it is. It's the carrot instead of the stick, and they know that. But unfortunately, I think the stick is the ACC and the Big 12 then sign away and essentially codify their own inferiority, which sucks. Like, I would want to do that if I was them. I would do everything in my power to avoid that.
A piece of paper where like really attractive men like Ryan Gosling and people like that like made you sign a piece of paper that said you're a 5. Was that not what's happening?
Well, right. It's exactly what it is. What do they give me to say I'm a 5? Because at this point in my life, I might actually sign. So
you can come out to the nightclub once a year. You can be our friend for once a year, and you can come and be a part of the boys' night.
And they're gonna give me they're gonna pay for my drink, like it's bottle service, and they're gonna pay for it.
You get to come to the party, but you're just not one of us, and you have to sign that you're not one of us.
All right. When you put it that way, I might actually sign it.
Yeah, so you do want to go to the party, like, because like for me,
I kind of accept that I'm not one of them, right?
Yeah, but I guess like unlike the ACC and the Big 12, you probably don't have a burning desire or need to feel a part of their group.
That's true.
Like
that's the difference.
Thing. Like that's the bad,
as an old married man, that's not really of interest to me. So yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It just like sucks because like you have to admit you're inferior in writing.
Well, exactly, and I just. I don't think I could do. I understand why they're fighting so hard, and I don't blame them for it. But the thing is, and this is the other part of this, like Brian Kelly said, I kind of want them to play Big Ten teams too. Like, I want that to happen. I want those games on my TV. And I get it. You're right. They could just do it, but they're not going to. Yeah. They want something in return. It's annoying, but I want those games on my TV. I really want them.
I mean, all you want is good games. And I feel like for you, like the little carrot that you dangle in front of Andy Staples as it pertains to what system we should be in is how many times we can have good games on TV. Like, you're for any system that maximizes how many good games we can have. And I like that point of view. We just differ because I want good games that mean something. And that's
right. You want stakes. Now I do think there's a limit for me. I have a personal limit. Like, we've talked about this before. My personal limit on the playoff is 16 teams. I think you do reduce stakes too much if you go bigger than that.
16 is your line?
That's where my line is. Yeah. That's my personal line. Here? No, they'll go over it. They don't care what I think.
We're not done here.
I know we're not done here.
Yeah. This is
the other divisions and subdivisions do 24, but I don't like it. I don't like the playoff brackets you have to explain that are hard to explain. Producer River, by the way, did a little project for me. He made a graphic for the 16-team playoff with the double bye. That is something the Big Ten and the SEC are pushing for.
And made an error doing it, but we got to tell him he made an error. I know, but I'm saying that's how complicated it was. He couldn't even get through the bracket without making an error because it's complicated.
Yeah. There it is. Look at that monstrosity on the screen. It took me an hour to figure out how that worked the other night.
I mean, it looks pretty, but at what cost?
It does not look pretty.
You don't think all
the
those
Lane
games...
Kiffin one?
Mr. Give Me All the Games in the World doesn't love that?
Oh, the games look good, but the prettier one was the Lane Kiffin one, where it was just 16, and that's it. That's pretty. Look at the symmetry there.
In terms of the symmetry, yeah. Like that,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But like in terms of the games, like you get more good games at the end. But again, it's always for me.
Do you?
I don't know
because
what's the math.
I don't think you do. I actually because if you go back to the Lane Kiffin one, Ole Miss at Texas is a 14-3 game.
Well, I mean, you're going to get bogged down on.
What's the spread on that game, Ari?
But don't get bogged down on what it would have looked like in one individual year. You're just getting the amount of games is what's important.
But I think last year was fairly representative. I mean, I realize it's small.
You think?
So sample size of one, but I think you'd have that. I think one of the pluses of what Lane was talking about is you'd have some situations where 15-2 and 14-3, they're potential big seed upsets. Because like your South Carolina at Georgia last year and your Ole Miss at Texas, what's the spread on those games? Less than 5?
The funniest thing about this whole thing, and I can open up an entire like new podcast segment on this, and I don't know if we want to do that, but is that
save it for tomorrow too.
My personal belief is that if they're ranking it the way that Lane Kiffin thinks they should be ranking it, the rankings from last year would look different. Our ranking would have been correct.
Yes, but we'd probably still have all the same teams.
We'd have all the same teams. They would just be in different order and then change.
Yeah, I'm not as interested in the order as I am in who's in.
Yeah,
and I think that's for sure how the commissioners feel.
Well, you feel less worried about the order too, especially if buys are off the table too. Like you are, like I found myself concerned with the order because we knew the 5 or 6 seed was gonna have the golden ticket to Candyland last year, and that's what happened.
Correct.
So like, it's like that from that standpoint. But like, 1 versus 16, like you can make the case even in the fake hypothetical bracket that Oregon got screwed. Playing Clemson at 16.
I don't know. I tell 1 versus 16 is because that would be Clemson. No, I think Oregon would have handled Clemson pretty.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, they're probably, with what the information that we have now, there probably would be, easier on paper matchups in that spot than the 116.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I'm all for doing what makes most sense. I think the cat's out of the bag. The thing that I've been holding on to is gone, and now I just want it to make sense.
I am not going to argue with you on that. I'm not.